Hey, good morning, Mike Kennedy, Convoy Road Coffee Roasters. Shout out to all my coffee people. This morning, I want to walk you through a timeline of sorts, take us around the world a little bit. You've probably all been to a coffee shop, your local coffee shop, your Starbucks, a Big B's, pick one. You've all probably been there. But did you know that the first record of coffee being served in a public place was in 1475 in Turkey? Uh, Kavi Han, Kiva Han was the name of the first coffee shop located in Constantinople, which is now Istanbul. Turkish coffee was served very strong, black, and unfiltered, usually brewed in a device called an ibrik. Um, they took coffee very seriously too. In fact, at that time, a Turkish woman could divorce her husband if he couldn't provide enough coffee. Interesting. Uh, let's go to Europe now. The idea of doctoring up with coffee and cream, and I do it. I'm not a purist, so to speak. I love black coffee, but I drink cream and sugar for the most part. But that idea came from Europe in 1529, and this was also when the first coffee house in Europe was established. Here's how it happened. Vienna, Austria, was invaded by the Turkish army, who left many bags of coffee behind when they fled the city. There was one man who had visited Turkey who knew what these coffee beans could be worth. His name was Franz George Kolchitsky. He claimed the coffee as spoils of war and opened a coffee house. Um, Again, he was the only one who recognized it. He had lived in Turkey for a time. Um, he introduced the idea of filtering coffee as well as softening with the brew with milk and sugar. It was a big hit too. Coffee houses also started serving sweet pastries and other confectionery treats that the popularity really exploded. Then they continued to spread throughout Europe. British coffee houses, with the first one opening up in Britain in 1652. Uh, the idea arrived again from Turkey. An English merchant who dealt in Turkish goods, including coffee, had two of his servants leave him. They went into business for themselves and formed a coffee house called the Turk's Head. Uh, it was in an This is interesting. It was in an English coffee house that the word tips was first used for gratuities. A jar with the sign reading "To ensure prompt service" sat on the counter. You put a coin in the jar to be served quickly. Interesting. Um, the British called their coffee houses penny universities. That was the price for the coffee. And many of the social upper class businessmen came and had coffee in these penny universities. In fact, a small coffee shop run by Edward Lloyd, remember that name, in 1668 was such a business hub that eventually became the still operating Lloyd's of London insurance company. Then the idea spread throughout Europe. Italy in 1654, Paris 1672. Germany embraced the coffee house for the first time in 1673. What about America? When we were colonized, the coffee house came right behind us. I mean, it was there pretty quick. The role of the coffee house was about the same as that in England. Hot spots for business community. That's where the rebels, the patriots, the non-loyalists, um, that's where they hung out. Um, the Tontine Coffee House, 1792, was started in New York. It was the original location also for the New York Stock Exchange because so much business was conducted there. Um, Espresso. Coffee houses were serving regular coffee, just plain old coffee. In 1946, a man named Gaggia invented the commercial piston espresso machine, which was far easier to use and safer than earlier models. The Gaggia Coffee Bar in Italy was the first location to use these machines and to offer espresso along with regular coffee. This is when the modern age of coffee houses was born. I want to take you focus strictly on the United States from here on out for the rest of this video. First, there's been three waves of coffee. We're still in the third wave, but some of you are still stuck in the first wave. and some of you are still stuck in the second wave. The first wave runs from massive adoption in the United States uh, all the way through to about 1970. People realized, more and more people realized that the caffeine in coffee kept them awake, kept them alert, um, and helped them stay productive. So it really took off. But back then, they weren't drinking it because it tasted good or was part of their usual routine or was something they drank on the way to work. Um, it was for the caffeine, almost exclusively for the caffeine. They didn't care where it was grown, who produced it, what the flavor notes were, because there probably really weren't any flavor notes, um, or whether they enjoyed the taste of it or not. None of that mattered. It was all about caffeine. Now, coffee drinkers in the first wave, uh, you see a lot of young people drinking coffee today. In fact, we've had kids come up to us well at places where we're serving coffee. Young kids, probably 10, 12 years old. They're like, yes, I'd like a cup of iced whatever. And I'm like, uh, does your mom know you're here? Uh, anyway, uh, in the first wave, coffee was produced for quantity. Quality was not really a consideration. In the 1830s, world coffee production was about 2.5 million bags annually. That's in the world. Brazil in 2025 projected to harvest 69.9 million bags alone. 69.9 million bags in Brazil alone. In the 1830s, it was only 2.5 million bags for the whole world. Brazil back then, Brazil produced about 600,000. Um, Cuba, which I wish we could drink that coffee, that'd be fantastic. It was pretty close at about the same amount, 600,000 bags, followed by Haiti and then Java. Um, Java was producing about 375,000 bags at the time. Do you ever wonder why some people sometimes call coffee Java? There you go. Interesting note here. James Folger, uh, and many of you are still probably drinking Folgers today, made a fortune by deciding that instead of joining the California gold rush and going out in the fields and panning and digging, mining or whatever, trying to find gold, he decided he would make his fortune by keeping the miners awake or the gold rushers awake by providing them coffee. That's how the Folgers Coffee Company was born. Didn't mean to kind of got off track here, but I'm going to stick with it. In 1864, a man named Jabez Burns of New York was granted a United States patent on the original Burns coffee roaster. It's important here because it was the first machine that didn't have to be moved away from the fire to gain access to the roasted beans. Big deal. In 1865, James H. Nason patents the first coffee percolator in the United States. In 1871, a man named John Arbuckle, who had some help from a draftsman and a machinist, invented the first machine that actually filled, weighed, sealed, and labeled coffee in paper packages. But he took it a step further. He was shipping coffee all over the world, or all over the country. But he took it a step further, though, and became the first person to mass produce. He did it from the factory, which he called the Arbuckle Ariosa, and sold it all over the United States. But he eventually became the largest importer of coffee in the world. But he wasn't done. Eventually, he also built an armada of ships and became the largest ship owner in the United States. Every merchant ship used for South American coffee trade belonged to him. Um, let's talk for a minute. Does the name Joel Cheek mean anything to you? Probably not. But it's the story of Maxwell House. The man Joel Cheek. He was a wholesale grocer, and he started Maxwell House in 1892. We wonder where the name comes from. He moved to Nashville in 1884, where he met a man named Roger Noley Smith, who was a British coffee broker. The two spent years developing the perfect blend. And in 1892, Mr. Cheek got in touch with the food buyer at the Maxwell House Hotel and gave him just for free gave them 20 pounds of coffee so they could serve to the guests. It lasted a few days. They served it to the guests. And after the 20 pounds was gone, they went back to what they were serving before. But the customers weren't happy. They're like, no, 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 no. Bring that other coffee back. We want that one. We want that one. About 6 months later, the Maxwell House Hotel agreed to let Mr. Cheek call his blend Maxwell House. Now these customers might be the first ones to really care about how coffee actually tasted. Some of you today are still drinking first wave coffee and hold the same attitude as first wave coffee drinkers. It doesn't matter. I just need caffeine. Don't care what it tastes like. Blah blah blah. I suggest it might be time for an upgrade. So what I've discussed here about the United States is what's called first wave coffee. We're getting into second wave coffee. It started about 1971 uh, with when Starbucks first came around. We'll talk about second wave, and now we're in the third wave. We'll talk about that one too in future videos. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this and more all about coffee content. We'll have recipes for drinks and so on and so forth. Uh, Subscribe to the channel, like this, and we'll see you in future videos. Thank you.